today we have Srinivas. So I'll just introduce Srinivas to you, and then Srinivas will take over. Um, so Srinivas started his career in the Air Force as an air traffic controller as part of Short Service Commission. He worked in the corporate world in Pero Systems and Dell in training and learning and development roles. He's currently heading the corporate HR for India for a 170-year-old German company, Freudenberg. He's worked the top leadership in his company for the last decade. He enjoys playing different kinds of sports like golf, TT, badminton, and he paints and sketches in his free time.
Thank you, Vijay, for the introduction, and good morning, everybody. Over to the session. Recently, in April, I had the nice experience of joining the Airbenders session on a weekend along with my two children who play for Airbenders, and when Jaydeep was also coaching the team. When the debrief of the morning's game progressed, I came across several interesting aspects brought up by the players. In fact, over the last few years, through Airbenders and through the Ultimate Frisbee, I have been understanding some of the very beautiful aspects of this game. And it was not a surprise for me that morning, but it was really beautiful to listen to how the players sat in a circle and were actually debriefing. And I'm already using a word from Edgar Schein's book, and we'll come back to that word if time permits. But this is a beautiful example of how a team sits together and examines what happened. And this was the first what should I say, the activity that seemed to really touch me. And after that, some of the players also mentioned that, half the group is perhaps relatively new, half the group is experienced relatively. The skill levels are at different stages, and even the familiarity between people, the chemistry seems to be at different levels. This was, again, a very interesting insight. And the larger dialogue that happened during that debriefing session was also about making Airbenders a greater team. And so there were discussions from people in leadership or more experience talking about what can we do better, and the people who had lesser experience were listening very carefully. So what I witnessed was an excellent example of debriefing where members of the team express themselves freely. That's very important. And discuss the importance of feedback. Some of you will remember that people actually shared inputs on how feedback should be exchanged, should it be solicited, should it be voluntary, and so on. And somebody also mentioned the strength of Airbenders is in the sidelines, which means how does the team support itself when the members are not playing, but they're constantly engaged. What I understand is Ultimate Frisbee clearly comes across as an evolved sport to me, as there are several examples where the players demonstrate great qualities which are written in books. I wish it was there in many other sports. So I was reminded of the book when I was sitting there and listening to Jaydeep facilitating the discussion. I was reminded of a book that I have been using at workplace, and particularly one chapter in that book, chapter 7. Uh, the book is by Edgar Schein, and the book is called Helping, as you already have. You can see it on the screen as well, and you've been given the chapter by Vijay. And that chapter speaks of teamwork as a perpetual, reciprocal helping. This is a very unique definition, and that's why I thought we should address this chapter today, which is how I offer to bring this lovely chapter to all of you as my contribution, and a little gift if you intend to go ahead and read this chapter and read the book. So thank you for the opportunity. So I wouldn't take too much time today. I only have a couple of slides considering the time in hand. We'll keep it absolutely crisp and sharp, and see if you can save at least 10 minutes for your reflections and maybe questions, what you actually found in the chapter. That would be beautiful for everyone to listen to, because if each of you brings out a diamond each, then we'll end up with a dozen diamonds at the end of just 10 minutes. So let's see if you can do that. and particularly those of you who read the chapters, if you reflect or if you use the 10 minutes to share, that would be of great use for everybody. So I intend closing the slides part of the presentation by 9:20. So we say 10 minutes. So every time a team comes together for a common purpose or a goal, whether it is a team of surgeons, as the book has used an excellent example, whether it is a team of football players, could be ultimate frisbee players, or even people in business. Interestingly, uh, they always deal with several team dynamics. Now, this is something which we cannot escape. Anytime you have a team of a set of human beings coming together, they all come with the traditional challenges of a team. It's about people being stronger and not so stronger, not so strong, people more experienced, less experienced, higher skill, lower skill, gender. All of these are inherent to any team that comes together, right? So hence, it's very important that working continuously on team aspects is essential for a team to become even better from where it is today. So not just in skill and strength, but also in terms of culture and relationships. So for today's session, I would focus more on culture and relationships, which is where the book is immensely helpful. So I would, again, make this session extremely sharp by only looking at the definition that Edgar Schein has provided. That's all the time allows us to do. But it's a very powerful exercise because the definition itself is extremely unique. It has some excellent words. So I'm going to show you the definition straight away here. It says each member helps the others, not the other, but the others, by performing his or her role appropriately so that equity is felt by all and mutual trust remains high, even under high performance pressure. It's a beautiful definition. There are several books that we read about team building, several definitions, but some of these words are so beautiful, so unique. Those are highlighted here. The idea of helping that Edgar Schein actually describes in this book, I would quickly show it to you. This is, I know it's a bit of a mirror image, but awesome book that you could get your hands on sometime. Basically, he goes on to describe the qualities of helping itself. So in the larger context, the book actually speaks about when is help useful, when it is not useful. How should it be offered? How should it be received? And so on and so forth. So that's a much bigger scope of discussion. But if I come back to these words that are highlighted here on screen, the role of an individual, it receives a lot of significance in this chapter. How does a person identify himself or herself with respect to the role in the team? And I feel that's extremely useful in the context of Ultimate Frisbee, right? So is it possible that we look at an example of a new Ultimate Frisbee player joining Airbenders, and I'm curious, what would that person think? What is my role in this team, right? And there's a slide with some absolutely wonderful questions. So those of you who have read the chapter might want to dive in at that point of time. So you could even ask questions maybe as soon as we finish these couple of slides. So there is a set of questions that Edgar Schein says that people reflect on or should be reflecting on when they're part of a team. And that's when the role becomes clearer. And the next part of the definition talks about equity is felt by all. Equity is a very interesting word. It's not equality. Equity is when, identifying each one's strengths and weaknesses, we still deal with each other in a respectful manner and an accepting manner so that they feel part of the team. So I could be an absolute newcomer, like it was the case when I was there in April for this session. I was absolutely fresh to Frisbee. I had only seen it a few times, maybe played a couple of times, but never understood it on field. So did I feel a sense of equity is important. So how do you really induct a new person deal with a person who's learning, and then how do the experienced people come across. All of these can be understood if we have an equitable relationship. And I must say, I had a wonderful experience as a newcomer, and I could see the great experiences many others are having. So many of you are already practicing what Edgar Schein speaks about. So it's not new to you, but I hope it's good news that we are already doing a great job with it. So sense of equity, right? And then mutual trust remains high, which means what are we doing to constantly feed trust in a way that people feel uh, engaged and continue to remain highly motivated to be part of the team. Why is this important? Not just to sustain a good team, not just because it's fun to have a good team, but because it's essential for the team to function. It's a different story if people just want to come together, have a good time, maybe it's a good workout, and they just go back, but they don't give it too much of seriousness about building a team. But what I heard the other day is there are aspirations. There are some serious aspirations Airbenders has, and they speak about a vision. They speak about the scenario of the team's experience levels and skill levels and how we should go forward. So there's a lot of seriousness attached to it. If we have to do that, and if we have to perform even under great pressure, then I think these words become extremely important. So one of the other key words is, as you admire the image, hopefully, is the Castellas from Spain, the human tower. Similarly, we have in Mumbai, the Gopalas built something like this. And it's amazing how this definition can be understood using the image of Castellas, because no single person can achieve anything by himself or herself, even the one who has to climb all the way. The lightest and the smallest person who finally climbs all the way to the top is the most inexperienced, by the way, is the junior most, and perhaps the one who's scared most. But then there is a lot of confidence given by everyone around. The strongest fellows are actually at the bottom, how they actually encourage the kid to climb all the way and achieve the objective. So it's a beautiful metaphor for this definition. So you could also look at airbenders working like this together, right, to be able to achieve greatness. So what is it really signifying, this image and the definition of Edgar Schein? It talks about creating multiple reciprocal helping relationships, which means just a relationship is not good enough. You need to establish a helping relationship, which means each person is helpful to the other. That's the first part of the definition. It has to be reciprocal. That means if I walk into a session on a Sunday morning and I'm walking away, I would like to stop and wonder, what did I do as help for others today in my game, or to be able to play better? And what help did I receive? Who helped me, and whom all did I help? The potential for it is in the field of permutation and combination, which means you can help as many people as is possible and receive help from as many people as is possible, which means you have multiple reciprocal helping relationships. So it's beautiful. I mean, I know it's theory, it seems impractical, but the examples Edgar Schein gives of a successful team of medical professional working with a surgeon who's the head of the team, versus a team that is headed by a surgeon and there are followers. What are the differences? So it is coming from practical examples and the rich experience that Edgar Schein has in the field of team building. So this is a very rich definition, and I'd invite you to explore it further when you read the book. This is a very powerful slide that actually shows the essence of the chapter, and also about what a team member goes through in his or her mind when they are new, or they are even reflecting on why am I in this team called Airbenders? What is my role? So the first question is, what is my role in this team, right? It is to be helpful, not self-seeking, but seeking the larger purpose of the team. And that, interestingly, fulfills a deeper desire of the human being to have a status in the team. So it has to be status enhancing. Second question, how much control or influence will I have once I join this team? Or do I just watch powerful people speak and I'm keeping quiet? So I feel I don't have enough influence. I can't say things that will steer the decisions of this team. So some amount of influence has to be provided to team members so that they feel important and hence they feel motivated. So that's how Edgar Schein builds the connection. Will my goals be met in this group? Maybe there are some goals people have, they don't mention them. Maybe that's when leadership will have to ask questions that what are your goals, friend? Why are we in this team? So being a part of team's activities is the first good step. And then of course to have goals that are fulfillable. That means sometimes you don't want to create some goals that are not achievable, but fulfillable enough to motivate you. And that's the idea of uh, asking yourself this question, will my goals be met in this group? And also important is what will be the level of intimacy that I will enjoy in this group? That means, am I going to test role limits and understand others' expectations? Do I understand where the other person is coming from? Is there going to be camaraderie? Is there going to be chemistry that will work? And that's how I will fulfill one more desire, which is unexpressed usually, is I want personal and emotional involvement whenever I come to play or whenever I relate to it. For example, the last time we heard some very touching remarks from team members who said, oh, this team is more important to me than family. I enjoy myself so much. So this is a great example of personal and emotional involvement in the team. Once this is created, then there is reasonable assurance that the team has a very high level of effectiveness, at least from the point of view of culture and relationship. Of course, it goes without saying that skill and strength are constantly built every time the team comes together. So my invitation to you is to think of scenarios where these needs are met. Then you have, of course, great examples. Also think of scenarios. Maybe these are not existent, but imagine what can happen when these needs in the minds of individuals are not met. And mind you, these are not needs of only new people in the team. That would be a misnomer. These needs exist in every individual of the team, no matter how experienced the person is, how skilled. It could be the coach himself, it could be the captain, the leadership, a new person, experienced person, uh, general, neutral. Everyone has a need. How do we then become sensitive to the needs of our team members and make it happen? Not only from a position of leadership, but also from a position of a colleague. And that's the essence of helping. So these are a few things, and I can't be covering too much of content. As I promised you, I will keep it crisp and sharp. This is the essence of it. So what I'd like to do now is to ask for you to share your reflections, particularly those people who read the chapter and who have possibly identified several diamonds in the different pages. So it will be a good exercise and great use of time if you're able to pick not the same topic, but try to bring something which has so far not been spoken by me. And then as you share, maybe others also should share things which are unique. Then we'll make great use of the 10, 12 minutes that are left. And before we move on to that exercise, if you have any questions at this stage on the previous slides, I would like to take them and then we move into the sharing. Any questions, anybody? Okay, so if there are no questions, then my invitation is to those people who have read the chapter. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. I'll call you Mr. Srinivas because I don't know what you're comfortable with.
I'm called Srini by everybody.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So Srini, one thing that struck me, it's halfway between a question and a reflection. And in the chapters, they talk about how the surgeon automatically comes in with a lot more status, or the football person who runs comes in with a lot more status, whereas their other teams are very clearly demarcated as a supporting cast. And my question is really that sometimes when we do acknowledge and know and fully believe that it takes everybody to make the goal happen, whether questioning that status itself makes sense, and to say that, okay, why are we celebrating only the goal in ultimate frisbee parlance? We should be celebrating every pass that leads to that goal, or kind of redefining what that status is. Does that help? Or is it fine to kind of accept the rules of society or the rules of these particular statuses and move on?
Excellent. Wonderful question, Meghna. The way I understand it is Edgar Schein does not talk about disempowering leadership of what they already have. So status is of the team members is not earned by disempowering status from the other. So Edgar Schein says, recognize the surgeon for his greatness. Of course, that's why he is appointed as a leader of the pack. Nevertheless, he prescribes humility to be practiced by the leader. So the outstanding word, there is a book, by the way, Edgar Schein has written called Being Humble, right? So he says that, can you practice humility knowing well that you are the qualified or the most qualified person in the team and you hold decision making with you? Can you practice equity in a manner that a nurse, a head nurse, or the junior most nurse present in the operation theater feels valued? And for that stage of career and for that contribution, they feel a sense of equity. They feel a sense of pride that they bring this to the table that makes the surgeon's job much easier. So he has to take the responsibility of making it look like that, not necessarily for teams to feel worried if they will disempower him or do something impolite. So it has to come from the environment that the leader creates, so that people feel encouraged to call a spade a spade. If the surgeon is making a mistake, a nurse should be able to say, wrong, whatever, medical tool, this is the right one, and the surgeon has to listen. So it has to be practiced. I don't know if I've answered your question. Have I?
No, you did. I think what I was struggling with is that if the surgeon truly believes that they are a team, then humility should be easy to come by, right? Like nobody needs to tell her that, hey, as a surgeon, you need to be humble and you need to take in. So I think that's where I felt it was a little prescriptive. Like, shouldn't the leadership automatically come in with that humility? They are not going to have the answers at all times and everybody's opinion matters, as opposed to saying, hey, in this role, you be humble.
Yeah. Great point. What I understand from it, again, from my experience, is that, in general, yes, leadership is inborn, but there are several qualities that have to be practiced by people. It's a bit of a myth that a leader is blessed with all the qualities. Every leader can be better if he or she can practice certain things. And what I think Edgar Schein has found as a great strength is humility. In the face of great expertise, sometimes people forget it. And in the process, what happens is the surgeon is still successful, immensely successful. But as the book says, at the time of crisis, at the time of emergency, it's the weakest link in the room that decides the success of that act or the surgery. So hence, it's important to practice it. All of us need to practice, no matter how well we think we already are. Yeah. You're welcome. Great questions. So we have 5 minutes more for anyone who would like to share something that you found unique in this book, in this chapter.
Can I butt in?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I know time is at a premium here. So just a quick observation. I mean, I've not read the chapter. So just going by your first slide, I just find that a very good analogy is the human body to a most effective team. Because like you rightly said, every team member has a specific role. And then that's where the human body also comes in, where a team member is equivalent to a human organ. And each of it has a role which it needs to play to the best and not expecting from the rest of the other team members. And if any particular organ doesn't function properly, the entire body feels something is amiss. So I suppose
True.
that is something the rest of the forum can just maybe contemplate upon, and it really fits with what every word which Edgar Schein has used, talking about the equity and the mutual trust and performing their role appropriately. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, Balaji. That's a great contribution. You're right. You can have a similar analogy like that, and each one has to recognize it. So it would be, again, extending the same example, it would be a pity if a set of new players or a new player always thinks that, oh, I'm not good enough for this team. These guys are really good, and I have a lot to do to catch up. Instead, think of a new team member walking away saying, I actually got to contribute to this team's benefit because I'm a yoga practitioner and I took them through a session. I may not be good at the game yet, but I have been able to help this way. Or I called my captain aside and told him, listen, Captain, I heard you saying this. It was awesome, but you could do it like this, a little differently. So how is it that a team member can feel that sense of equity is through the environment we create? So great. I have a question or a comment also on the chat. That's my wife, by the way. While trekking, we are as fast as the slowest. Absolutely, yeah. So that's a great point as well. So hence, I guess as long as we are able to complement each other in the team, and everyone is able to have a sense of pride. In fact, there is a thing about saving face or having the traditional feeling of what's the word that we used earlier? Image or yeah. The sense of pride has to be there among each person to be able to move forward in a team. Status, sorry, that's the word. Any last? Yes, Gaurav, please. Yours will be the last question.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to kind of, share something that you touched upon with Meghna earlier. I'm just reading this definition of each member helps the other by performing his or her role appropriately, so that equity is felt by all and mutual trust remains high. Leadership, one particular aspect that, I've not read the chapter of the book yet, but I strongly feel that leadership should also include empathy.
Yes.
Failing which I think, and this is again adding to the humility aspect that you just mentioned, failing which I don't think equity or the fact that one can even help others can come into picture. So empathy, in leadership, where we keep aside experience or the skill of that particular player, who the leader is, I think that's a very, very important, I would say, aspect to have in leadership.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're absolutely bang on there, Gaurav. I think the quality of humility, quality of listening, empathy, all of these have to be practiced by leaders if they really have to get the larger purpose behind the team and understand it. And I think you said it, absolutely. And there is one more comment by Shrikant. The aspect of embracing culture is important, but attitude of a person plays a key role in these transformations. Absolutely. You might know a lot of things, a lot of books, but how do you finally agree to apply to this? And how do you finally apply it on ground, sitting on the grass? In the moment when you have to pass the disc, are you thinking of all this? Or would you pass only to the experienced people? Like we had a comment also, that, you don't pass the disc to some people. So is there a bias you carry in your mind? So I guess all of this comes to effect finally when you're on ground with the disc and running. In the moment, are you able to bring these thoughts and live them? That's when it becomes useful. So I'm going to thank you all to close the session. It's 9:30. I just want to close the session by saying this is just one page out of 100, right? So read the chapter. I don't think reading a book itself, the whole book might be required. But if you read the chapter, I think there is a lot of benefit, and more importantly, implement it on ground and have a great time ahead. And I look forward to seeing all of you on ground again in person soon enough. Thank you.